Welcome to Unhinged with your host, Teresa Romer, motivational speaker, fashion expert, and fashion guru.
Welcome to Unhinged with Teresa Romer. We are here today with my great friend, Kristi Hoss-Schiller. We go back a long way.
Long way. But I don't want to date ourselves because then the cat's out of the bag.
I knew you back in the day when you were radio personality.
Yeah, radio personality. Thank you for not saying DJ because everybody always says DJ. I wouldn't know how to play a record if somebody put a gun to my head.
But you had a radio name.
I did. It was actually a nickname from childhood. And the first day I started on radio, they said, "What's your name?" And we were getting ready to go on. And I said, "Kristi." And they said, "Oh, no, you can't use your real name." And I was like, no one's ever told me that. They said, "Come up with a name. You've got to do it before commercial break."
Yeah.
And so we went into the first segment and I still didn't have a name. And somebody called in and I said, they announced the new girl. They said, but she doesn't have a name yet, or she's not telling us her name. And somebody said, that sounds like a girl I went to school with named Lucy Lips. And my dad had given me that nickname because I would tattle on my brother. Loose lips sink ships. And he's 11 years older. And so it was always, he won't take me with him. And this is the reason why. And this is what he's doing when he's there. And so my dad would say, loose lips sink ships. Lucy, here comes Lucy.
There you go, Lucy
and
Lips.
So Lucy Lips.
Wow, I
That's
never
how
knew
it-
the story.
That's how it started.
Wow. So we go a long ways back. We have both been through a lot in our lives, probably more than we could even put in a book at this point.
He'd take a whole cattery.
But the part about you that is so, I mean, there's many parts of you that amaze me, but there's one part that really tugs at my heart because I love adversity and I love people that bounce back from adversity because for most people, adversity puts them away. But you're kind of like me, back in the day when I was a little kid, I had this little bouncy clown that if you hit it and it fell down and it bounced back up, I can't remember what it was called.
Little sand in the bottom.
Right. I've always said that was me, like knock me down, but I'll get back up. And I think we were cut from the same cloth.
Well, you don't have a choice.
Right.
I mean, I know you grew up in a small town. I grew up in a very small town. I mean, if you wanted something,
right.
And I grew up, I say, in an era. God, I sound like my parents. It wasn't that long ago. But, it was always, honey, now put some lipstick on. Because you never know who you're going to see at the store. And you have to look good for, somebody that's going to pick you. And
right.
But don't worry about school.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
because when we were growing up, it was
the
about
boys.
It was about growing up, and then you just get married and live in a little house with a picket fence, and have 2.5 children, and live happily ever after.
Right. And I did that at 18.
Well, I tried that too.
I tried it. I call it my mulligan marriage, and I tried that, and I think the ink wasn't even dry on the thank you notes by the time I hightailed it out. It didn't last.
No, I tried 7 years. Yeah.
And, but I look back and I grew up, I say where the Gulf of Mexico meets Texas.
Yeah.
And I thought there were oyster shells in everybody's driveway.
Aw.
Like I didn't know that wasn't a thing.
Kind of like I grew up thinking everyone was sweet and nice and kind.
Well, but they had farm equipment everywhere. You know what I'm saying? I mean, you only know what you know.
Or at branding time, everybody comes, helps you brand,
Absolutely.
and then you go
That's
help them
a big
brand. Yeah,
time of the year, or crop time, or whatever it is that you're doing that your family's livelihood.
Yeah.
There was always so much pride in that. And I was telling somebody the other day, I don't remember bullying growing up. I don't remember people being so affected by labels.
The worst
if
name
you
I
didn't
was-
have certain kind of shoes, nobody really cared.
Nobody cared. I mean, I wore hand-me-downs. Nobody cared, And the worst it ever got for me was somebody called me Four Eyes once time because I, had glasses on. And I was like, who cares, But today it's horrible.
And, they talk about all the bullying now, but I don't remember that. Everybody, it didn't matter who lived in what house or if you were in a house or a trailer house or whatever, you just had friends.
Right.
And
but like I
these
said,
were the same ones from kindergarten.
Right. But like I said, I grew up thinking that everybody was nice and sweet and kind. Our neighbors were all, So the first time I ever encountered someone being nasty, I was like, what?
Right.
Tell me I was naive. I don't know. Maybe I wasn't naive.
I'm still naive. My daughter is away at college, and she says, my mother is the most worldly, sophisticated, naive woman you'll ever meet.
Yeah. So I kind of felt like I was raised sheltered.
Right. Me too.
And naive. But, once you encounter mean for the first time, it makes you grow up real fast. But
I was driving across the border at 14 years old, running errands for my family.
yeah.
I
14.
wouldn't let my child go to
Down the street.
to the mailbox without me with her in high school. I mean, it's just things, and part of that, we'll never get that innocence back.
No. That's like you said. That was an era we lived in.
Right.
And we can always listen to our grandparents talk about their era
Right.
that they lived through. So we're all going to have eras, and look at the kids that grew up through 2000 through COVID. That's going to be their era.
Right.
But speaking of COVID, that's where I want to go with this, is because I know that during COVID you became gravely ill.
Gravely ill. I had been sick. Quite a few people said, "Oh, it's the COVID shot," but I had started getting sick prior to that. I'd say I was diagnosed in 2021 of June. I had 5 strokes, and I was dropping things, couldn't hold it. Just these massive headaches. And so I went to my doctor, and he said, "You're young. There's nothing wrong with you. You're healthy. It's allergies."
Okay.
Okay. And he said, "We're going to take some blood, but I can tell you that you're fine." So a month goes by. I had a seizure, and I never had a seizure before. And I really didn't know that's what that was. Mm-hmm. And I went back to see him again. And I said, something's not right. And I can't, I'll go to drink water and it falls down the side. And he goes, "Again, it's allergies." And he goes, "I'll take the blood again, but it's not going to change." I said, "Do you think we could do a head scan?"
So I'm assuming a stroke doesn't show up through a blood test?
Well, no.
Okay.
And so, so this is 7 or 8 months prior to me being diagnosed.
Yeah.
And so he said, and everything was getting much worse. So then I had dropped my daughter off at school one day, and this is about 3 months into the blood test, and this was at the very beginning, kind of that 2021 of that first year of COVID. And I would go places, if we would be invited to a friend's house for dinner, I would go in and I would take pictures while I was there. And, somebody would say, "Going to redecorate your house?" I said, "No, this is going to be crazy. I want to document that I was here. I don't remember." I said, "It's my allergies." So I said, "What kind of allergies do you have?" And I said, "Oh, no, don't worry. I mean, I've been going to my GP now for 6 or 7 years, and he knows me pretty well, and it's just allergies."
Once again, we put our faith in doctors, right?
So I dropped my daughter off at school one Tuesday, and I go to HEB, and it's about 9:30 in the morning, and I remember just the pain felt like a claw hammer was going through my head. And I was like, "This is crazy." And I had 2 baskets of groceries, and we lived on a ranch, so this is like kicking off some sports season, and we're expecting all these people at the ranch. And I went and left the baskets there with my purse in it, and went over to the pharmacy and said, "I need something for a really bad headache." So, they gave me some Excedrin. I take the bottle, and I go back, and the pain was so severe. So I finally check out, and the young man's helping me. And I remember the sun, when the doors open that morning, it's hitting me in the face, and I can't remember what kind of car I drive. I said, "Gosh," I said, there's not that many. It's early in the morning, 9:30 or so. There's not that many in the parking lot in College Station. And so he said, "Do you have one of those things that,
the fob?"
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I said, "Oh, You're so smart. And he said, I've never helped anybody with this many groceries before. And I said, I live alone. I'm trying to make jokes. And everything's becoming more narrow. Like, and I'm just thinking if I can just get to my car, I'll sit in it and I'll be okay.
Yeah.
And so my license plates say Canines for Cops. And he said, are you a police officer? And I said, no. And I just was struggling. And he said, do you live far from here? And I said, I don't know. And was just so scared in that moment.
Right.
And this lady comes walking by and she said, is your name Christi? And I said, yes. Do you know me? And she said, I've been to your ranch. I said, which direction is it? She was telling me which direction. And I said, how far away is it? She said, just maybe 6 or 7 miles. She's kind of looking at me like I'm crazy. And I sit down in the car and I'm trying not to cry. And so the young man who's in college is coming to help me. And he said, I'm afraid to leave you out here. And I said, look, I just want you to know I'm not on drugs. Maybe I should be on drugs.
Right.
I said, but I have very bad allergies. And he said, to what? Like, I'm getting this a lot.
I have no idea.
And I said, I don't know, but I've just been having I said, but don't worry. I have a doctor. And he said, well, I think, should we call somebody in your family? I said, just don't go get a manager. Don't, I said, this will pass.
Yeah.
Well, about that time, my ex-husband's face comes up on the iPhone and it says CEO of an oil company. I said, look, I'm married to CEO of an oil company. I said, it's going to be fine. And he kind of looked at me and I'm talking and I said, I know I'm at HEB, but something's more serious going on.
Yeah.
So I end up getting home. Still another few months goes by. And I was to the point to where my daughter is that June. She's like, Mom, why are you texting me like you've had a stroke? And I said, don't sass me. And I can't get it out. And so she comes down and she said, why are you writing all jumbled? I said, I must have water on my fingers or something. So she takes the phone. She goes, it works fine for me. And I said, and my ex was playing golf with the orthopedic surgeon for Texas A&M for the football team. And he said, how's your wife? And he goes, she's got these bad allergies the last 9 months. And it's getting harder for her. It's really giving her a hard time in her head.
Yeah.
So he said, I said, I think I have a pinched nerve. WebMD is going to be the death of everybody. And so he said she doesn't want to go to the hospital because, they're at that point, they're really working double shifts.
So my question at this point, though, is why are we sticking with just out in the country kind of doctors instead of like being in Houston?
I had spoken to my neurologist at Methodist,
okay,
Dr. Harper, and he said, Kristi, I need a disc.
Yeah.
When you come in, I'm going to need that MRI. Well, I didn't want to bother the people at the hospital because you'd see on the news
all the COVID stuff. That was happening.
The COVID, and somebody's going to say, "How'd you get COVID?"
Yeah.
Waiting to get an MRI, and it was nothing but allergies.
Right.
I'd kind of been so talked down to. I've never smoked.
Right.
Wasn't really a drinker.
Right. But the sad thing is we're coming to find out that illness does not have to be a certain age.
No.
Look at the 17-year-olds that are dropping from heart attacks.
Right.
Now they're having kids get these massive tests, now to help prevent that. I just saw that the other day with a 17-year-old kid, a hockey player just dropped dead, same thing. So the sad thing is doctors think that certain things are related to certain age.
Right.
And here you were, a vibrant young woman.
Not even 50. And so we had come to a dinner party, a birthday party here in the Woodlands, and I was going in, I dropped my phone coming up the driveway, and I went in the bathroom to use the bathroom to wipe it off. And as I dropped it again, I couldn't hold it. I leaned forward to get it, and the momentum took me, and I hit the stucco on their wall. And I remember laying on the floor, and I just couldn't even speak to get the words out. And so, lo and behold, my ex-husband says, actually, I played golf today with this doctor, and he said, bring you in at 7 a.m. They open at 8.
Yeah.
And they're going to run this thing, and you can take it to your neurologist.
Right.
Okay. Well, so 30 minutes, I'm in the pod, come out, and I'm trying to button up my blouse, and I'm having a hard time hitting the holes, and I'm few off, and the door opens, and it's the doctor, and he said, you need to come in my office. And he had the white box, and he said, you've had 5 strokes in the carotid. I said, like old people have that smoke,
Yeah.
drink?
Yeah.
And he said, what? Yeah, but
Yeah.
you've had them.
Yeah.
Wow. I just couldn't believe it.
Right.
So he says, look, he said, I'm going to give you this. And I said, are you sure that's what it is? And of course, they're these big golf ball size. You can see it on there.
Yeah. Yeah.
He said, the fainter ones are older, but you've been having these.
Yeah.
That's what this is.
Right.
So I go to Methodist because I said, if I'm going to die, it's going to be at the Holy Grail in the middle of the medical center, the finest medical center in the world.
Right.
Well, you have to come in through the ER, no matter what. It was a Friday afternoon. I spent 14 hours on a gurney.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
and this is, of course, during the height of COVID. And while I was in there, I was stayed in for 10 days. I came out, and my short-term memory was just obsolete. It was going, I don't remember meeting doctors from day to day.
Right.
And so I went back up to the TBI center there, and
Right.
they said, we think you've had another stroke. And I said, while I've been sitting here? They said, no, but we think you've had another one. We can tell.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Yeah.
And so this is like 3 weeks after when I was first diagnosed. And so I went and got another MRI then a few hours later. And they said, now you've had it. It's moved to the pons, to the brainstem. And I said, how many more before I look like Stephen Hawking? Just, what am I doing wrong?
Right.
They put me back in for another 2 weeks. And then the speech started going away. Any type of,
So they couldn't slow this down or stop it.
no. And they did $2 million worth of tests. I had 6 spinal taps. I had tested for JAK2 mutation, Moya. They thought maybe a meningitis, which I've had before. All these things. There wasn't even a clot. So I don't know if it was the Lord's way of saying, slow your roll.
Slow down. Mm-hmm.
Just
Yeah.
something.
Yeah.
But they tested just every test imaginable. And, I had the best doctor in the world. Her name was Tanu Garg. And she was a vascular neurologist. And just, she and I would cry together. Just that when you hear about the bedside manner,
Yeah.
she's as good as it
Yeah.
gets. And they never could figure out.
So here we are. Let's fast forward to 2026 now. So it's been 5 years. Mm-hmm. So did they have to do any surgeries? Did they do certain medications? How did they finally get it
put
all
me on
under
a
control?
thinner at 1st. I looked like a pinto pony within a week, all the bruising. They diagnosed me with something RCVS, and it's a narrowing of the veins. And basically, so when your cortisol level gets up or something's got you,
Yeah.
that constricts. So I have pediatric veins that have never grown up.
Nice.
And they found out I had a PFO, which is a little hole in your heart. I was born with a heart murmur.
Sure.
A lot of kids are.
I
and
have
it
one.
just kind of grows up on its own. Well, apparently mine never did. So they went in and put a loop recorder that it's like a little air jack
Yeah,
that
yeah.
tells them if you have
Yeah.
fib or,
Yeah. Yeah.
And but they never did close up the hole, which I was a little surprised. But they said that would only prevent you from having the strokes by maybe 5%. So to this day, it's just
Well, God bless.
God bless, but just relieve. We all do so much, and we put so much on our plate, and for other people. And here I was trying to run a foundation, and I relied on being so close to A&M. I relied on students
Yeah.
working for me.
Yeah.
So no class, no students.
Yeah.
With PPE loans, who in the hell is thinking about giving to charity?
Right.
I was scared to death, and I couldn't even, I was on a whiteboard, And I can remember taking the whiteboard and trying to write something out. And my daughter looks at me. She goes, I got some bad news. And she said they stopped teaching cursive in school. Really?
Yeah.
Can it get any better?
Kids don't even know how to do cursive anymore.
And
they look at you like, what's that?
right.
Yeah.
And so, I'm very grateful they did all of these tests, but they said, we still don't know.
You're a medical mystery.
Medical mystery.
But the great thing is there's been really no lasting effects, maybe?
No,
you were lucky enough not to have part of your face paralyzed.
I had a little bit of the aphasia. Mm-hmm. And, but.
And you don't have the arm that's
no
messed up. And don't walk with a limp. And I'm
I'm a little clumsy,
but for the most part, you're good.
Very, very blessed.
You're good.
And
you overcame it all.
A baby aspirin every day.
And a divorce.
Yeah. Yeah, I lost about 250 pounds in a day. It's amazing how that happened.
So if there was anybody out there that was facing major health issues and health problems like that, what would be your best advice?
Go with what's in your gut. I mean, here I didn't want to bother anyone. I had somebody that was a medical doctor saying, it's allergies. You don't have anything.
Get more than one opinion.
Right. Get more than one opinion. And I thought, I don't want to bother anyone. The whole country's turned upside down right now. Mm-hmm. And nobody needs me saying that. And it was so apparent. It was getting so much worse. But go with what your gut tells you, or
right. And during that time, we were all trying to stay away from hospitals. We were all trying to
stay away from each other.
Right. Well, we were told to, anyways.
Right.
Yeah. So I mean, and the last thing you wanted to do was be like, "Woe's me," and people are like, "Seriously, we have people dying of COVID here. Get a grip,"
Right.
So I totally understand, but I think sometimes you have to put yourself first.
Yeah. I mean, I was 9 months not living like that.
Yeah. And just imagine if you would have maybe went a few more months.
Right. I mean,
we wouldn't be sitting here having this conversation, possibly, So, her advice is get more than one opinion.
And you know what? It should be a continuous maintaining thing.
Yes. Yeah.
So, in other words, we go for
all of
lady
our
wellness exams.
Yep.
We do all the things that we should, but nobody was pushing it during that time,
right?
Because we felt like watching the news, and especially the poor nurses. Yep. Everybody was overextended.
Yeah,
and that's we'll get into this in a few minutes, but that's what led me to start a new initiative of my organization, Canines, was Canines for Care. Mm-hmm. When I watched how these nurses were being treated.
Yeah.
And people were coming in that were having mental health attacks. They were looking for drugs.
Yeah.
It wasn't trying to get out of the hospital.
Right. Yeah.
And I watched nurses being tossed across the room, and, they couldn't get a line on somebody, or somebody's pulling it out. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is a war zone.
Yeah.
I said, are you sure that this is where we're in the number one medical center in the world?
Right. Yeah.
It was very, very scary.
So, if you've loved this interview, you're going to love our next interview, because we're going to get more head dive into your nonprofit.
A nonprofit.
Which is now, 10 years?
Oh, gosh, no, going on 16 or 17 years.
Oh, Lord.
Since 2010.
Yes, 2010. Yeah. So, anyways, where can everybody find you?
I am Kristi, Kristi, at K9s, which is letter K, number 9s.org. And you can find us on all the socials at k9s.org.
Very good. So once again, you've been listening to Unhinged with Teresa Romer, and stay tuned for our next show coming up soon.